It's Tuesday afternoon, and we're here outside the U.S. Capitol. The rally behind me is the coalition Save Our Care, which fought against the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act, which was just defeated moments earlier. It is now officially the word of the majority leader of the United States Senate that they will not be voting on Graham Cassidy, the bill by Lindsey Graham and Bill Cassidy that would take away health care from somewhere between 10 and 20 million people and cut about $1 trillion from healthcare spending. So now the question is, what happens both on the congressional agenda and also what happens to healthcare going forward? So Lindsey Graham and a few others had been saying that, look, if we don't get this done now, we're going to make sure that the next budget resolution, fight includes healthcare repeal, Obamacare repeal, as well as tax cuts. And the reason that they would do that is that allows them to have the 50 vote threshold rather than the 60 vote. Today, however, Lindsey Graham sang a different tune. He said he didn't realize how complicated it was to try to do Obamacare repeal and tax cuts at the same time through the same budget reconciliation process, and so he's no longer demanding that. And so if he's not demanding that anymore, that means it's not going to happen. So what they're going to do next is tax cuts, although it won't all be tax cuts. It was reported earlier today that the package will actually increase the lowest tax rate from 10% up to 12%. So everybody else gets a tax cut except you suckers. Now they're also doubling the standard deduction, which means that a lot of people who that rate applies to won't actually end up paying anything. So it's kind of a fake move from 10 to 12. But they wouldn't be moving it from 10 to 12 if it didn't raise some amount of money that they are using in the math to pay for the tax cuts for the rich. So they're literally, in some cases, raising taxes on the poor to pay for tax cuts for the rich. That doesn't work that well because the poor don't have enough money, to make up all of the trillions that the top 1 and 10% need for these tax cuts. So mostly it will just end up being deficit spending. So the way that will work out is that as of today, the number one priority of the Senate and of the House is going to be this tax cut package. So they're going to work on this for the next several months, which isn't good news for traffic for internet websites because people aren't very interested in tax policy, even though it's of fundamental importance. So I hope everybody sticks with us through this fight because there are going to be all sorts of mischievous things that they're trying to push through while they do this. Meanwhile, you have some kind of populists from the right like Steve Bannon who are saying, actually, if you were smart about it, you would raise taxes on the super rich to pay for tax cuts for the middle class. So it'll be interesting to see how Breitbart and kind of that kind of knuckle dragging right handles the more business friendly approach that McConnell wants to take. So that takes us up till the end of the year, early next year. Then now Lindsey Graham is saying that for fiscal year 2019 he wants to try healthcare repeal again. So that means in the spring of 2018, when that fiscal year starts, that they would push for a budget resolution that would let them do healthcare or Obamacare repeal again. When he was asked why he wanted to do that after all of the shellackings that they've taken so far, he said, because if we don't, we will get killed. He said, I don't mean literally killed, I mean killed in the elections, but actually we might also get literally killed. That means 2018 is going to see a return to the Obamacare repeal fight. And this time around, there will be the dynamics will be somewhat the same in that you're going to have Collins and Murkowski, mostly opposed, but some things are going to be different. One, Susan Collins is thinking about running for governor in Maine as a Republican, which is the party that she's ostensibly a member of. In order to do that, she's got to be a little bit more right-wing than she is now, probably. Maine's current governor, Paul LePage, is one of the most bent over knuckle draggers in the entire party. If you haven't heard of this guy, just Google the guy's name, and the first couple pages of headlines you see are going to blow your mind. Separately, and this is morbid, John McCain has been diagnosed with a fatal case of brain cancer. And this affected the Senate politics when Ted Kennedy was afflicted with the the exact same tumor. And then separately, Bob Menendez is on trial, and it is very hard to get convicted of corruption under the way that the Supreme Court now defines bribery and corruption. Yet Bob Menendez may have found a way to do it. The relationship that he had with this kind of Medicare fraud doctor is so seedy that it's hard to imagine that a jury doesn't come back with a guilty verdict. So now you'll have let's say that happens. Now you've got a senator who's been convicted, and you have Chris Christie, who's still a Republican governor in New Jersey, for another few weeks. And so what I think would happen in that case is that Menendez would refuse to resign, just continue to hold his seat until the gubernatorial election in November, when Democrats are presumed to win easily, and then he would resign so that Democrats can appoint a Democrat. But the possibility exists that Republicans could appoint somebody there.